Five, four, three, two, one. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Moon Tea Podcast. I'm John, this is Hugh, and we're not sure what we're going to talk about today, but let's get started with it.
Hey, episode 4. Let's go. I
Yeah,
do have a quick PSA. You know what I just did earlier, just before this?
what'd you
I
do?
created our Twitter and Gmail. So we now have a Twitter handle, Moontea Podcast, at moonteapodcast@gmail.com. If anyone has any
Oh,
questions, feedbacks, or want to just tweet at us or DM us,
oh
that's
yeah.
the way. Hey,
We'll put those down in the link below.
yeah, that handle. Let's go.
Cool. And any sponsorships. send, send them
Send them our way. Yeah, our DM box is pretty full though. We might miss them, so have them send a few.
Yeah, you just send a good message to get our attention. But yeah. Um how's the week going?
Good, good. I've no one will know this because this is very in the middle of the week. I get a box and I was like, "What is this?" I didn't buy anything from Amazon, and it's a big tea box. And I was like, "Wait, what?" And it was from John. So we bought a random tea sampler of all the different teas for.
Ooh, that
I
looks
wonder
good.
why. I wonder why. The Moon Tea Podcast, of course. So we're sipping some right now. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's episode 4.
Episode 4. Dude, I've been reading a really good book. It's one of those books that like slightly alters the trajectory of my life, or like makes me see things and think about things differently. It's called it's called The Art of Learning, and it's by a guy named Josh Waitzkin,
Hmm.
and it's super good. Like Josh Waitzkin is a guy who was a competitive chess player growing up, and he was the subject of a book called Looking for Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer was a chess grandmaster who was undefeated uh, several years in a row, and then he just disappeared. So, uh, Josh Waitzkin and his dad went on this journey to look for Bobby Fischer, and then long story short, Josh Waitzkin at like 11 years old or something like beats Bobby Fischer in chess,
Wow.
and then
That's pretty cool.
it gets turned into a book and a movie. But yeah, really really cool book. So this Josh Waitzkin guy uh, was a world class chess player, and then at like age 18 or something, he decided to pick up Tai Chi push hands, and then like 5 years later, he was the world champion. And yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's super cool. It's like a really cool book. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'll never be a world champion at anything, but
You never know.
you never know.
You never know.
World champion,
At being
most
mediocre.
most guest appearances at the Moon Tea podcast. tied with this other guy. um
Cool.
but
Awesome, dude.
it makes me, it's like I don't I don't think it's fair to say that there's a takeaway from the book, because it's one of those books that like the takeaway isn't really that important. It's just kind of like a fun, really interesting read. But he talks a lot about structuring his framing. He talks about how he's not necessarily world class at chess, but he's world class at knowing how to learn something. And yeah, he talks about when he learned chess, like he he started with just like something really small. He calls it like a really small circle. So he learned how to do like a king and a pawn against a king, and he would just like do that, and then it was like just a bishop. It's like added one piece at a time. And I've been kind of thinking about like, how do I apply this to my software? Like me doing software development. And I feel like it's kind of a cool framework to approach a career because the idea of doing a career solely because it pays the bills is kind of sad for me. And so I've been like wrestling with this idea of like how do I make this into, and this is what one of our podcast themes is about, is like how do I make this into a craft and like something that like I get to just chip away at and get better at a little bit every day. Um, and so it's cool. It's cool to read about someone who like is good at learning and then trying to apply that to me doing something like building a new feature. Um, but yeah,
I love it. That's super cool. Yeah, I wonder the part where it's like precise learning and iterative learning and compartmentalized learning. That seems so interesting, especially when proven by a one-time world champion, but beating Bobby Fischer too. It's pretty big. Wow.
yeah. And so yeah, I don't know. Like where do you want to be in 10 years? Like are you still going
Honestly,
to be working in the tech world?
have you ever thought about doing those people who are like on YouTube? There's like the guy who picked up he got to like top 30 or 50 in ping pong in 100 days or a year or something, and he did a YouTube series on that. And then there are other people who kind of do those 30-day challenges. I've always thought that was interesting, where you just pick up a new skill, like I don't know, become really good at Muay Thai for 30 days and go to Thailand, or like go and become really good at surfing in 2-3
Mhm.
months and then record the whole thing. And I thought those people who live that type of lifestyle are really interesting. Well, I guess you could do challenges too. How do you do 100 pull-ups and getting up to that in 2-3 months in a row or
Whoa,
something?
100's a lot.
Yeah, that would be crazy. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Not a.
I'm
It's interesting.
I'm like this book has inspired me to start jujitsu. And so I found a place that's kind of near my apartment, and I think I'll go tomorrow or like sometime later this week. So like I kind of am doing that where I'm like I want to learn how to grapple and like protect myself. Like cool, yeah, I'll try it.
I love it. Yeah, I'm totally into that too. One of my best friends, Nick, he's into jujitsu deeply as well, and he mentions the exact same thing, and just the fact that he's able to walk the streets feeling more confident and getting better. But it takes 10 years, right, to become a black belt in BJJ, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah, I think
Incredible.
so. I think if you're Josh Waitzkin, maybe like 4 years, but for the rest of us regular people, probably a long time. Yeah, I have a friend who is a blue belt, and he's been doing it for like 3 years.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of life lessons in there. But um,
Yeah, absolutely. I want to join. I want to take some BJJ classes as well. And COVID hit, so I didn't. But my friend Nick, he was trying to convince me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." And then it kind of fell through. He still goes every now and then, I think. Well, he hasn't been going recently, but he was going till a few months back. And once this is over, I'm down. Let's go.
yeah, it's
And
probably
then
last
let's
last on the
roll.
list, last on the list to come back post COVID, just because you're like
Yeah,
in close contact with a stranger. I think that's
yeah.
generally not COVID safe, but oh man, gotta try that stuff. Just like salsa dancing,
Oh,
like whatever the last phase is, salsa dancing and jujitsu are like after that.
exactly. Yeah, I can't. I really want to learn to dance. My oh my, that would be so good. I've taken classes here and there, but I never stuck through it, and makes me sad. I wish I could, but
I think
hey,
I think one of the I I did salsa classes for a few months in 2013, but I'm like very glad that I did back then. Like I'm definitely not good or anything. Like I feel like the average Latin man is born knowing how to salsa dance. Just like comes out of the womb and their hips are shaking. So I think us Asian people and you half Asian person are at a disadvantage. But yeah, I remember going in 2013 when I was studying abroad, and I just like showed up to a salsa lesson, and I'm like super glad that I did. It was like got me out of my shell and got to meet cool people and all that. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Um, yeah. Any other experiences you think are worth pursuing?
So many, so many. Hey, Julia, my sister's home. Hi, Julia. We'll get her on one day. She just did a radio podcast the other day, a radio
Oh
interview
yeah.
for her own thing. She's all cool, and
Oh
here we
man.
are recording episode 4. Julia, hey, we're recording right now. You can make a cameo if you want. Nope. Anyways, yeah, I don't have a soundproof studio. I'm just in the the living room. But anyways, I digress. With regards to skills I want to pick up, so many. I actually just today on the career side, well, on like hobby side of things, you should see my trunk. I just have like rollerblades, slackline, camping gear. It's kind of funny, but
You also have like a barbecue pit thing, right?
yeah. I have a grill. I have a Weber,
Girl.
a nice little hot pot thing. What do you call them? Pots? I forget. Kettles. The kettle. It's good. Oh, dude, Costco has really, like, if you're serving 6 filet mignons, go to Costco because you
Whoa.
can get 6 filet mignons for like 50, $60. And
You said filet mignon as if you just like a regular meal thing for you.
you know, it was
Dang.
Dad's birthday this past weekend. We had to spoil him. Threw some of those on the grill, and I was like, wow, I'm actually starting to understand how to actually grill here. It was pretty fun. It was pretty good. There's like having the thermometer in there makes all the difference. If you don't have a thermometer, get a thermometer, especially the
that,
instant read ones, or else it's no fun. Um,
that makes
you
sense.
know, one day we should bring on someone for deep in the food game. Get them in here. That'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
That'll be
sure.
good.
Huh. Are you also learning rollerblading and how to stand on a
Yeah,
rope?
yeah. Well, I picked slacklining up a while back, but rollerblading is fun. Picked that one up over COVID. A lot of places are just sold out these days, like Big Five and such. They don't have a very high supply of rollerblades because everyone's picked it up in COVID. And I have some friends that go blading, and we'll go blading every now and then. It's a great way to hang out because I was getting a bit inside, and so I was trying to find any excuse to get outside with friends. So we picked up pickleball too recently, learning how to play pickleball, which is a totally random sport.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good time. But today I just asked our chief data scientist if I could be his apprentice. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna learn some R on my free time. I got through like 3 things on data camp, and we'll see how it goes. I need to learn more about data.
All
He's so
right.
funny.
So next on your list is data scientist.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. How do I do that like 20% of my job and still trying to figure out what I'm doing in the other parts, piecing it all together.
So I guess the mobile app is built and and
Yeah, yeah.
there's like less maintenance stuff and like the core features are there.
Yeah, no, we brought on one of my close friends, Ethan. We brought him on, and he's a full-time mobile developer now. And so he's taken over that mobile role and is unbelievable. That guy is so hardworking, so smart and diligent and like proactive. And that's something I really respect about people, especially just in the workforce. And I aim to be those attributes as well, where rather than having, there's like certain developers at times that you work with, and I just watch from a designer seat a lot of the times in the past, where they have to be told to do everything and they just do the minimal amount of work, and then they only get assigned XYZ and they do it. And then that's very fair in a larger company, and it's not just minimal on work. I'm sure they're assigned a fair workload, but like in a startup where the processes aren't really efficient or optimized and people can take advantage of them, I really respect Ethan in the sense of how he kind of is taking initiative and working on his pieces and just going ahead and reading XYZ code and implementing it. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, go you. No one's really PMing him, so he's kind of doing it right now on his own, and it's like, okay, that's awesome. Random Q. Do you know of David Hannemeyer Hansen for like Basecamp and Ruby on Rails founder and such?
Did he write? Is he the Basecamp CEO and
Yeah,
founder?
Basecamp CEO and just founded Hey, the email company that's supposedly more moralistic than Gmail and such.
I've heard about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a really interesting product management philosophy called like Shape Up, and it's really interesting. They have like similar yet different ideals than the agile system, and I've been thinking about that a lot recently of the nuances there. But yeah, high level and just it's interesting. Lots to read. It's free online, cool resources. Really suggest it for insights on PMing in a different light. I have found that to be nice.
Yeah, they're in a really they're they have like a really interesting product where the CEO can write a book about like, hey, you don't have to like you don't have to work until you kill yourself. And then he writes this book. It's a good recruiting tool, and people also find out about your product,
Yeah.
and then he can like continue this thing where his employees are strictly working like up to 40 hours a week, and then they have like in the summer they have like 4-day work weeks, just like I think they get like flowers or like once a week or something. Just really interesting situation that they like carved out for themselves, and they're not like trying to be this take over the world software thing. Like they're very much just like, hey, for this niche of small businesses, like we want to be this project management tool, and then if you're like above this amount, then like go find something else. And then they like don't have any one large customer. Like it's just such an interesting way of having employees, and such an interesting way of like choosing your product. And
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Like their business model too is so interesting in the sense of one you just highlighted. It's basically organic marketing from the things that are resources that they've created, and I just mentioned them, and it's happening right now, right? But
Mhm.
also the actual pricing scheme is very interesting to also think about, where they say, most people like some of the other tools like Asana and even Figma, they all have those on Slack, right? They all have $10, $15 per person per seat. And it scales up with the company. And just sometimes you don't need everyone. This is something I've always been annoyed with. Like with Figma, you have a $15 seat per person as a designer if they're a designer. And then if you want to scale it up, it goes up to $45 per person. But if you have five designers and like some editor, some other viewers that have access, you can't just have like a few at 15 and a few at 45. You have to move everybody up to 45. And I've always found that to be really annoying when you don't want all those features for everybody in a way. I just smart but annoying for them. Uh, for me, I mean, with regards to Basecamp, they're $100 flat, and I think that's just interesting. They're like, no matter how big you scale, no matter whatever, it is $100. And yes, no, this isn't a paid advertisement. It is just an interesting model. They do have, yeah, it is interesting. Their chat feature is not very good though. I remember us trying it, and I was like, "This is so buggy." Yeah, I'm like, "How can I don't understand how it's still so buggy when they're around for so many years, and then chat's such a big feature." I was like, "Wow, it's very featureless compared to
Was
other
it
features."
was it
Yeah, I don't
buggy?
know. Yeah, for me at least.
I just remember we were talking in like four different mediums. Like we had this
That
project
was pretty
management
bad.
tool for two people.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you can just text me.
Yeah. We had Basecamp, we had Notion, we were on Slack and Figma. I was like, what are we doing? This is when you were trying to work on Piggy, right? So funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh dear. That's funny. Cool, man.
So you're, but yeah, if I were to start a company, I would try to take more of the base camp approach, where
Yeah, I would absolutely 100%.
yeah, I had a in a in a previous company that I worked for. One time they had this big meeting and they were like, we need to increase revenue by 50%. How do we increase revenue by 50%? And then
Great.
they're just like throwing out all these ideas. And I don't know, I didn't really like that because basically they're trying to raise a next round and the investors had told them if you grow by 50% next year, then we'll be more interested. But yeah, it's just it felt very forced and very like yeah, I mean like that's something that is kind of out of your control, and like the focus should be on building a good product and making sure your customers are happy, like and then like in theory that revenue should come, but um yeah, whereas Basecamp writes about how they have zero goals whatsoever, or like zero income goals whatsoever. They're just like, let's build something cool, but like not work too hard for it, and like not and like let each other have our deep work and all of that. um Anyways, so you've been studying data science.
I haven't been studying it. I just started 3 hours ago, and then I took a nap before this, and then
So you've
signed
been
us up on
taking
Twitter.
so you've been studying data science for 3 hours.
More like 5 minutes of 3 hours. I know. I think it's really pretty actually in R. I thought this was very cool. To assign a variable, you write X and then the left minus the letter less than sign minus and then the number or whatever the variable is. And I thought it's cool because it's like an arrow of the number pointing at the variable. So it's like X arrow and then 3. So it's like 3 is X. I thought that was
Oh.
really cool. I like that syntax. I'm not gonna lie. The equal sign is cool too, but
Hmm.
I thought that was really pretty. And that's the
I guess.
farthest I got. They have hashtags for comments like Python, and that's it.
Nice. Huh. Yeah, the problem is that there's so much to learn. So like even within under the umbrella of design, like you could just go into different rabbit holes and stuff. And I
Yeah,
guess you're doing that with like a bigger umbrella where you're just like, I want to know how this data science stuff works. Uh,
yeah, that's something I struggle with actually. It is interesting and mm, uh, like right now, and I've been having this conversation openly with my product manager, co-product managers, and our product manager mentor, Kyle. I'm currently a designer going over to the PM role, but also and I had this question with my friends too when I was like really thinking of whether or not I would want to switch or not. It was like I'm like at this weird cusp where there's so much more to learn in the design. I've only scratched the surface, and I haven't even made out the full design system at a scale that I'd like or whatnot. But it's hard because there's like a thing with whether or not, like it's a bit of a jumble of thoughts right now, but career capital and staying in one profession and then going up the ladder from junior designer, mid-level, senior, lead, principal, etc., to a design manager. The same track for development too. It's almost like I'm shooting myself in the foot by hopping off the train when I'm a mid to senior level designer. And
Mm-hmm.
just as we're about to expand our design team and bring on a few more designers, I'm stepping off, and when I could have probably progressed into a lead designer role, and then from there build out a design system and build from there and become a principal designer in time, or even a design lead or manager. And I definitely wonder sometimes, I'm like, well, what is it about me right now that is causing myself to like hop off that bandwagon, which would just give me so much more career capital in that trade or profession vertical than me hopping off and kind of just becoming not just but just to becoming a PM, product manager, and then also splitting my thought process and learning in R at times if I really stick with it. Let's check in like 2 or 3 more Moonty podcasts, but we'll see how my
Mm-hmm.
data science projection is going. And I just sometimes wonder, I'm like, what am I really doing it for? Or like, is it worth it? Because I would be maximizing my income, even though PMs are paid more in the industry. If I were to be a higher level designer, I would be getting high pay as well. But I'm kind of like
Mm-hmm.
shooting myself in the foot and starting again on purpose. And I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, I really don't know if this is the right idea. I don't know if I should just stay in the thing, but in the design role and grow in that one at the startup, and then find the time to do it elsewhere. But I'm okay. I think I'm like, I think it's about learning, about being interested in what you're doing, and at this point, at least just having a solid foundation of what's your minimum you'd accept on wage, and then find where you keep growing and keep investing in oneself. That's like what I've come to think about, and I think that's where I'm going. But just a curious thing to like toss around and think about out loud. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that doesn't make doesn't make it so that it doesn't make it so that you don't have those skills. Like a designer with PM experience who kind of knows when it's a good time to step in and like run a meeting or make sure that everyone else is kind of on the same page. Like I think those are pretty transferable skills. Um, that might be a little bit harder to like brand yourself as, or like it'll be harder for someone to know that outside of the interview,
Yeah.
like unless they've worked with you. Um, but yeah, I guess that is kind of tricky. I guess you're kind of at a point where you're like, all right, I don't care. Like if my salary moves up higher at this point, like that's cool, but I would also rather like be curious about things and then dive into those curiosities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, hey, you're still a functioning human, still paying taxes, and and co-hosting this podcast. So like something's working out so far.
Dude, slight tangent. I don't know about you, but in the past week, I have said to 2 different people, "Oh, you're interested in that? You should look at X episode of the Moonty podcast, episode 3." Yada yada. Like, oh, okay, oh, sweet, I'll do that.
If you're listening right now because because Hugh has advertised this podcast, then shout out to you. Pat yourself on the back.
Shoot us an at Moonty Podcast Twitter, and we'll like you back and just be like, hey, I am listening, and then I'll just be so happy. I'll be like, wow, this is actually working. People are listening for no reason. I don't know why.
I know why. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I don't feel like I would be that interested in PM. I think I could eventually do it, but like right now I'm trying to not be in a lot of meetings, and I'm trying not to manage other people's work. I mean, I definitely I'm like lowest on the totem pole right now, but I think that's one reason for me not to like take on a bigger role. Like I'm trying to intentionally take a step back and being like, hey, I'm working on this. Like you, hopefully I'm not blocking you on anything, but like
Disclaimer: if you are a coworker or a manager of John, he's working very hard on what he's doing. Let that be said. However,
yeah, I am building like working on some cool stuff that uh takes a lot of focus and effort. Uh but yeah, yeah, I guess my company is a little bit bigger, and so the way I see it is like even in software development, like there are all these angles that I could do. So I still feel like having all those options like would still be like different parts, like different code bases or like another language. So I guess I don't feel constrained in that way. But, but yeah, who knows? I could be a full-time artist like 4 years from now.
I hope so. That'll be great. I'll buy your first piece, dude. Okay, so slight tangent again. Artist, art, NFTs. The fun little update actually was in the past 3 days. I was just listening in on a bunch of different clubhouse rooms and as NFT based, and I actually got
You
my
did it.
first NFT, dude. I got my first wallet. Someone sent me my first thing on the blockchain network that was an NFT art piece. Basically, just think of like someone's art was sent to me instantly, and that was cool. I own like 4
What
pieces
was
of
it?
art right now.
What was
I
it? Jack Dorsey's first tweet,
I wish, dude.
LeBron James dunking.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Let me actually see. I wonder. Um,
Did you see
dude,
that?
take a
Did you
look
see
at
that
this.
meme? Did you see that meme where this person is at a party and he's in the corner by himself and he's like, no one knows that I own this song's NFT.
No way. Oh my goodness. They should be all paying me royalties because I own it, man. It's unique. Look at this. Look at this. It's pretty sick. So, NFTs. These are my NFTs. I like own these. You should make a wallet. You can make it and I'll send you one of these. It's pretty cool. I own an NFT. Well, yeah, NFTs are
did
really
you
interesting.
did you have to mortgage your house to get this?
My man, they were free because not everything needs to be paid for in this life.
Whoa.
But you also have to pay to mint NFTs. Very, very cheap though on that one.
Oh, you have to
Yeah,
pay to maintain it?
mint them. There's
Mint
a
them.
term minting. Yeah, that's when you create them for anyone who's wondering. And it's really
Hmm.
interesting. Like there's different. So right now, it's actually interesting. It's an interesting time because Ethereum had its version 2.0 fork or whatnot in December, and they
Hmm.
added gas fees, right, to the
Hmm.
protocol. And so the gas fees are exorbitantly high right now. So people that are minting things are paying a lot of money, and they don't want to pay the money, so they're trying to find other alternatives. And I'm just beginning to join in on this, listen in on the conversation. But there are different blockchains. Like the one that I just showed you is built off of the EOS blockchain in a wallet slash token called Wax, and it's basically free, like less than $5 to mint an exorbitant amount of your own NFT artworks. But then I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, why isn't everyone doing that? Um, and I guess there's a more rabbit hole of, yeah, it's hard to, sometimes it's like easy to get your money and hard to get your money onto things like this. And I guess it's just not as popular, as no one's ever heard of Wax. But I thought that was interesting. It's a bit bad UI. It's hard to get. I couldn't buy any money on it right now. It was just, everything doesn't work. You can't pay with a credit card in the US easily to buy Wax.
Mm.
It's so interesting. So I guess that makes sense. And then I'm trying to like write a medium list. This is what I'm gonna do of like the different things I'm finding, and just trying to like keep track of them. And then I'll remember the names, because there's like one called like OpenSea, super cool. You can like see a bunch of artwork, but people are selling ridiculous amounts of money stuff on there, and it's like, wow,
Mm.
this is like art. And so I was like trying to figure out how it pairs to the real world. And I always think of my sister. She's an artist, and she does a lot of painting. I'm like, how do you mint your art, get it to be an NFT, and then have it one to one, and or create original digital versions of it? And then just yesterday morning, I was talking to another good friend of mine, Nick, and I was like, yeah, he loves trading card games and stuff like that, like Magic. I was like, yeah, man, instead of playing LoL so much, why don't you check out of making your own card game on it as an NFT? And supposedly, like, I was like, yeah, it would be really cool, because you can even create evolve forms. You can create like dynamically traded cards that then can merge and then evolve into a new card on a whatever the technology is underneath. It's like, it's been proven. There's like a site called Crypto Kitties, and they have a bunch of little cats, and then you put them together and they evolve into like a new cat with special features, like evolutionarily. And then someone sold the most expensive crypto kitty for $170,000. So there's just dumb money in that market, and it's super interesting. But yeah, trading card game, super cool. That's like a cool way to think about NFTs, and like how that could be interesting, where people can create their own unique sets of X, Y, and Z originals, 1 of 10 of photos. And I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm
Did you
getting
know?
there.
Did you know there are NFT index funds? So like
What?
if you wanna have an index fund on CryptoKitties, then you can just like bet on the industry. So there's kind of like an
No.
ETF kind of, I don't know. I guess it's not an NFT. I guess it's a some sort of DeFi thing.
What's DeFi?
What's DeFi? I mean, you could probably tell me at this point.
Yeah, I know, but I asked you first.
Yeah, it's DeFi stands for decentralized finance, and uh, it's a fancy word to say that we now have a lot of financial services products that run on blockchain, which is a wordy way of saying you can do things like get a loan, um, lend out some kind of property, um, and exchange coins for other coins, but without any central authority. So it's like it's something that a government entity or like one person should not be able to shut down. Um, and yeah, it's really interesting because these are real products that people are using today.
Like, they're real products that people are using on the DeFi space, or that the DeFi space is copying from the current regular fiat world, or both?
Oh, like they're real products. Like you can exchange coins for other coins on an exchange that like runs on a decentralized network.
So interesting.
Um,
So I'm gonna play. not devil's advocate, but just the newbie questioner, because I've actually also been sitting in on a lot of the intro classes by the different clubs on Clubhouse and listening to what people are asking. So I spent like probably 8 to 10 hours in the past 2 days as I was weeding our yard and doing some other chores, listening to what people are asking. So I'm gonna pull that one where
Whoa.
I'm gonna ask that with you. So is DeFi coin to coin thing like Coinbase, or what do you mean? What is this DeFi exchange you're talking about? Is it just one or is it many?
So there are many exchanges. Coinbase is one example of an exchange, but it would technically be a centralized exchange.
Oh,
Uh, oh.
tell me more.
um, yeah. I actually used a decentralized exchange in late 2017. So it like might have been one of the first ones that was out there.
Oh, which one?
It was called Open Ledger. It ran
Oh,
on
okay,
this coin called BitShares, and yeah, I mean it wasn't very good, but it worked.
that's pretty cool. What'd you buy on it, or what'd you do? How did you even get there? I've been actually wondering a lot about, did you have to buy through a fiat to crypto on ramp and then go from crypto to get to that DeFi exchange, or how did you get your fiat onto that and into that and onto whatever coin you wanted?
I had a I had a contract job, so I did some work and I was paid in Bitcoin on this
What?
on this platform.
What? When did you wait? What?
Yeah,
Wow,
I had a contract job in I started in September 2017 and I was paid in Bitcoin.
that's amazing. That's really cool.
And then they stopped paying I think the end of December.
Wow.
So like when as soon as Bitcoin prices started going down, like they stopped paying, and so it wasn't. I was just like, all right, guess I'll find a real job now.
Oh, that was when it
But
was at its high, right? In the end of 2017, like the 20K price point, right?
yeah, yeah, that was a
Yeah.
that was a really cool experience because I would be working and like on this application thing, and then outside of that, I was spending all my time reading about crypto, just like learning it all at once. And I think once I was paid in it, it just like made a lot more sense to me. Because I mean, probably this is the case for you too, but like you probably like had heard about it a bunch of times. Like I had too. I remember seeing an interview in 2015 with the Winklevoss twins, and they were saying like, oh yeah, we think it could be we think it can be like $400,000 a coin. And this is when Bitcoin was at like $400. And I remember thinking these guys have lost their minds, and I just like continued on with my life until early 2017, and I was like, oh, nice. So it's a little
Dude,
bit closer.
I have a similar thing where I studied abroad in Europe and at the University of Edinburgh. And when I was in my dorm, I remember looking at my computer, dark room, just by myself, minimal amount of friends. And I remember looking up something my ex's brother had mentioned once when we were in Hawaii. And he was talking about Bitcoin. And I was like, what is this? And I saw Bitcoin for $300, or maybe it was 350 per Bitcoin at that moment. I was like, maybe I should buy some, but I don't have any money. I and I was like, dude. Now I look back and I'm like, why didn't I just buy one?
Well, you didn't have money.
I was a poor college student. It was
Yeah,
so sad. Oh,
it happens. Whatever.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Dollar cost averaging, bit by
Ooh,
bit. Here we go.
nice.
But back to the real questions at hand though. DeFi
Hmm.
exchanges.
Hmm.
Why is Coinbase and such a centralized exchange? And what is a decentralized exchange? What are some examples of some popular ones now? And then we can continue on the conversation of that comparison and what's better or worse or mediocre.
Yeah, I don't know what the popular decentralized exchanges are. I've heard of Uniswap and SushiSwap. I think I think SushiSwap is not a decentralized exchange, or the other way around. Not too
Hmm.
sure. Um, I think most people who are I think most people who are dabbling in decentralized exchanges probably don't are not like probably don't need to. Like you can probably find most of those coins on Binance or um, like I'm guessing people are doing it because it's like the cool thing to do, or there's like a really obscure coin that isn't listed anywhere else. Um,
And obscure coins are also known as altcoins in the industry.
yeah, I guess any coin that is not Bitcoin is an altcoin.
That's very true. Touche, touche. However, the altcoins are the ones that are not found on like Kraken, Binance, Coinbase, onboarded
Yeah,
into Cash App. Yeah.
yeah.
And
I actually
then
have I actually have a friend who is very deep into that ecosystem, and
no way, that's so cool.
yeah,
I'm just beginning to peek my head into it.
yeah. We should interview him.
Let's do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's learn more about this though. We need to learn more. Or
yeah,
maybe we
after 10 episodes,
let's do
let's
it.
interview someone. Um, so yeah, I mean we can dive into crypto and Bitcoin and all that. What what are some of your predictions about like what this in a general sense could be, or like why should people care about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and DeFi and NFTs?
Mm, yeah.
Okay.
There's just a lot to unpack there. Where hmm. From the very very surface level amount of research that I've done, that is a decent amount, but still nothing compared to lots of people out there. It really seems to me that just at a technological foundational level of our monetary system globally, the current ledger system and account clearinghouse systems of bank-to-bank transfers over the SWIFT networks, Spain networks, SEPA networks in Europe, yada yada, are very good. They do the job, but they also have a lot of problems. And from what little I know, they allow for things kind of like the GME stock to happen where I don't know if it's the best analogy, but because of a lot of one loopholes and two the uh, the technology is so slow that it's not a perfect accountability system where different ledgers and from different places have different amounts of equity and securities and whatever trackings, that it allowed the GME stock to be shorted to like 140% of all the shares that are even existing of it. And that's like not fully in part due to, but one part in due to a more archaic, just underlying software point of view for how the ledgers are kept and things are kept, from what I've heard. And correct me if I'm wrong. But I think in the same way, the banking system worldwide has a very similar issue when you're trying to do a Swift from the US to, France. It's not going from bank to bank. It's going from bank to bank to bank to bank, then to the bank. And then everyone takes a cut in between on the rails, the payment rails, and then if something goes wrong or something gets lost, tracking it down takes days, if not weeks. And the cost of it also really quite high. And there's nothing really for a dollar transaction or $100 million transaction. There's no real pinned amount that's fixed. And so I think just all of those are interesting things to account for when thinking about crypto and blockchain. And there's different solutions, kind of like Stellar, XLM, we're trying it, Bitcoin's doing it, where you have instant bank transfers, B2B, from X node to Y node, and the ledger system that's built on the blockchain. And for those who don't know the blockchain, we'll one day talk about that, is pretty much perfect, and nothing really gets lost due to all of the intricacies of how that all works. So the ledger system is really, really impeccable in a way and very trustworthy, and most all of the ones that I've seen are transparent. So I think that's just at a foundational level why it is giving our payment rails that are in any country and nation a run for their money. And that's just the beginning.
Well, that was kind of for Bitcoin, but what about everything else?
That wasn't actually. Stellar's, I think, is very important on it. So Stellar is a really interesting P2P, B2B payment network that's built for that exact solution. And I think there are a lot of different coins that are really interesting that help create better anchor and on ramps and off ramps and the anchor nodes of them. But Bitcoin's also very, very important on it. And I don't know enough about it actually on how, and I want to learn more of just how the layer two, like lightning layer, is it layer two for the lightning layer, or is it just because there's layer one, which is the Bitcoin protocol and such, and Bitcoin.
By layer one, do you mean on chain?
Yeah, see, I don't understand it well enough yet. What do you mean? What does that mean?
Um, yeah, so there, I think at a very high level, there are two approaches towards uh, Bitcoin scalability problem, and the scalability problem is just summarized as when there are a lot of transactions, those transactions uh, can't all be fulfilled at once, and they become really expensive, and so it it doesn't it doesn't like Bitcoin ends up not really fulfilling this role as cash or something that can be uh, where its value can be transferred. Um, and the first way people have thought of making Bitcoin more scalable was what's called an on-chain solution. So all it means is it's a literally like on the blockchain, like doing some kind of changes. So like one of the more public uh, one of the more public changes was a fork in 2017 called Bitcoin Cash. Uh, the difference with Bitcoin Cash is that um, instead of a block size of 10 megabytes for Bitcoin Cash, I think it's 40 megabytes. Like it's just they're like just bigger blocks. When with bigger blocks, you can fit more transactions in there. Uh, and because they're not fighting, miners are not fighting for that space, then those transactions can be a lot cheaper. Uh, the second the second thing that was done recently was called segregated witness, which is not a fork. Like it's actually a software update for Bitcoin right now, and it's just a change to how the blocks are organized. So it just makes them more efficient. So those are the on-chain, uh, kind of like recent on-chain innovations that I'm aware of. The Bitcoin Cash community basically argues that because computing resources are getting cheaper and cheaper, you can just make the block size bigger and bigger. Um, and there's a whole debate behind it. Um, but then the people in the Bitcoin like core world are saying that we need what Hugh refers to as level 2 solutions, or like off-chain solutions. And the idea behind the off-chain solution is that we keep the uh, we keep the blockchain the same, which is like every 10 minutes there's a new block is mined, uh, and like added to the blockchain. Um, the most like well-known off-chain solution is what's called the Lightning Network. And the idea behind the Lightning Network is that people or businesses or companies or anyone run different nodes that kind of like attach themselves to the network. And then when there are a lot of nodes on this network, then you can do a transaction that in theory should be really fast and really cheap. Um, and the way that it works is, um, at a high level, it's kind of like if you and I had a Venmo transaction where we get lunch, I charge you for whatever the lunch was, $10, and then um, Hugh buys something else and he just returns that $10, and like we just have this Venmo balance that was like just keeps going up and down, but then at the end of the day, it becomes like I owe Hugh $4, and then when the node gets disconnected or is not part of the like just or like wants to even out all those transactions, then it does an on-chain transaction.
Hmm.
And
That makes a
so
lot of sense.
yeah, and so if I was a business that was doing uh, a lot of transactions, and like it would just be way cheaper to do it that way. And then you can have like nodes. Like what I was thinking was you could have the on-chain Bitcoin transactions, and then you can have nodes under that, and then you could have sub nodes, and you just have like a library, like a bunch of nodes that are supporting each other. And so like the more security you want, you would want to go to a higher node. But then if you're buying coffee, like you don't care if it's the lowest node. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it long term. There's definitely a lot with the Lightning network that I don't know about, but I think at a high level that's how it works. Um, and it's like kind of being used right now, but not as a not as a widely adopted thing yet. Like it still took time to use the SegWit um, upgrade like version wallets. It's like it took time for people to start using those wallets. And so I think in the same way, like Bitcoin runs very slowly, but also very securely. Um,
There's so
that's
much to
yeah,
unpack here. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Wow. I I just googled how many transactions per second for Bitcoin, and is this right? 9,000 transactions? No, 7 transactions. To put this into perspective, the BTC network, which many still incorrectly insist on referring to as Bitcoin, limits its block size to 1 to 4 MB, permitting a maximum 7 transactions per second. It's more like 3 to 4. I don't understand. But basically, something I have a question on is, you know how like they say Bitcoin can't compete with credit cards and Visa Mastercard networks right now because they're able to do what,
Hmm.
10,000 transactions a second or something like that, something, and Bitcoin can't have enough transactions. So like the
Hmm.
Lightning Network and such, those solutions seem like that's how they would kind of take off that traffic and to support those until it goes on chain. But at a Bitcoin level, so right now, do we know how many, like, I guess I just need to study it more, but um yeah, you've got like the average 10-minute block mining hash algorithm changing and updating, so it's average of 10 minutes, right, per block. And then you've got block sizes, and then you've got transactions per second. So I don't know what to ask really. I'm just trying to like think about it live,
Yeah,
but
I think
yeah.
I think it's important to note that I don't I don't even think we need to have that many transactions per second. Like I don't think that's all that important.
Isn't that the problem though with like Ethereum gas fees and stuff? Everyone's trying to pay for their transaction to get verified sooner or later so they can up or lower their amount. I think you do it on Bitcoin too. You can like pay to higher fees to get it,
Hmm.
and so like if you're buying a car, you don't want to wait too long for it to go through. So the more people that use Bitcoin, the slower it becomes unless we have better solutions, right? Or am I missing something? And then also if you want to get a better time to 3 verifications, whatever that really means, and however you check that is interesting. I still want to figure that one out too. It's like you have to pay more, like, and how much is that more, and where do I look? Interesting questions.
Yeah, I mean you definitely have to pay more if you want it to go through faster. But I don't I think people overestimate how much of a problem that is. Cuz like I don't think the point of Bitcoin is to be able to buy coffee with it. Even though at one point you probably were able to. Um yeah. I don't think
That's a
it
really interesting question. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it like needs to do I don't think it like needs to be that payment thing for everyone. Um,
Hmm.
but that could be another discussion because it goes into like because like right now banks do settlement with each other whether it's at the end of the day or like once a week or whenever because like they're also sending transactions back and forth and so because Visa and MasterCard they're all connected to these banks like none of them are actually doing settlement like they're doing like this loose version of a lightning network where everyone is every like all these central banks are kind of like sending IOUs to each other and then at the end of the day clear they like clear it. The difference with Bitcoin is that you send that value right away
Until we use the Lightning Network.
until you use it. Well, even if you use the Lightning Network, like once you take the once you like with yeah, I guess that's stuff for me to read into as well. I don't know if I'll get a chance, but we should bring someone on who knows what they're talking about. But yeah, I don't think that's the that's like such a horrible issue. I think transactions could be like $1,000 and Bitcoin will still be really useful.
Transaction fees will be 1,000.
Yeah,
Transaction amount
transaction fees.
will be $1,000.
Yeah, I think even if it was $1,000, like Bitcoin will still be super useful.
Wait, that's totally. I've never heard anyone say that yet. I always thought everyone's like, it'll be super, super cheap, cents to a dollar for $1 or a million, $100 million. Why? Where did $1,000 come from? And that sounds
I'm just
scary.
yeah, I'm just throwing out a giant number.
I'm just curious. Yeah, how does that? Is that due to the network getting overwhelmed by too many people and transactions, and then that's you paying
Um,
higher fees to get it done? It's
well,
interesting. Wow.
if you think about in the year 2140, we're gonna mine our last Bitcoin. After that, like we're still gonna need miners, and so how our miner is gonna be rewarded?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be through mining fees, but it's gonna have to be a lot more than it is now if we want the network to be as secure as it is right now or more secure because that electricity is not free, right?
Dude, wait, hold on. So Bitcoin is supposed to be becoming the world's reserve currency,
Mm-hmm.
and that means that's a big thing. If within 120 years, and that's it, it's $1,000 per transaction. via my Apple Pay. Am I missing something here? Because that doesn't sound right.
Yes. I'm saying it can be $1,000 for an on-chain transaction fee.
So everything else would be on the Lightning Network, like virtualized and just on ledger to ledger, and then finally go to
I
the
think
chain.
so. I think so. I mean, no one's gonna know for sure, but because like you think about it, after we stop having Bitcoin rewards, we're gonna need to have mining fees. Like if we didn't have mining fees, then their Bitcoin wouldn't have any security.
Yeah, all the miners would go away. The incentive's gone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It is a curious question.
And if we're relying only on mining fees, then those fees have to go up because like the assumption is that the Bitcoin network is going to be pretty robust by then. And so like it could be like $1 million a transaction.
See, this is why I don't know if this is exactly why I still am partially skeptical and questioning of Bitcoin and the fact that it is a finite amount of 21 million. Like, I understand that it is theoretically a good idea to have a deflationary currency for certain reasons and no centralized bank for many different reasons. I do not know if I truly am on board with the idea of something that there will never be any more assets made of, and there's only 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. And so it's not infinitely divisible. And also, if and when that hypothetical point comes, that's the amount per coin will go up exponentially or whatever. And then people might not even start selling it because it's too high and such. So that's why I also am thinking about a number of other coins that have inflation baked in at a fixed rate and such like that, so that you never have that problem of the miner not being incentivized to add security to the system due to X, Y, and Z, and always being able to get know that 5% more is made, or 2% or 10% is more is made every year, 3 years. It is interesting, and I still don't
Yeah.
know the answer. My thoughts.
I think I know the answer. I'm just kidding.
Do tell me more, please.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk about it more next week. We can talk about what happens after 2140.
I like that. That would be really cool. Well, we'd have to hypothetically
Yeah.
think about a few just like base foundations of how the society is, and then like run with it. How do we do this? Okay.
I don't know. We read about stuff and figure that out. But I think we're like well into an hour now. Do you want to say any parting remarks?
No, that was awesome.
Do you want to close?
All right, I'll close this out then. Do
Mhm.
you have any parting remarks before we close?
Thanks for joining us in episode 4. If you've made it this far, stay for the cool outro. Might as well.
Ding, 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 ding. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 4 of the Moon Tea podcast with John Kim and Hugh Berrien, myself, and John. Oh, man. Muddled that one up. Anyways, we're good to go. It was a great episode. Co-host here. DM us on Twitter. Say what you think. Let us know if you're even listening to this point. And if you have any requests, questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. Again, it's John and Hugh. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Until next time. Bye.
Peace.